Okay, everybody, this is the final recap of our second game of Kings and Kaisers. And man, was this a dynamic game. The first game, it pretty much seemed like a Central Power game most of the game, but this game would definitely had a couple swings of the pendulum. For the first half of the game, Central Powers were really kicking my ass. It was like they had about 8, 9, 10 victory points, something like that. They were winning the favorable trade point. They really kept France back. They were winning the Western Front. It was looking like Russia could fall as well. There was a big push east. He did a big push east and a big push west, and he had air supremacy in both theaters. It was looking pretty ugly for me. The Ottomans had pushed into Russia. They were building up in Palestine. We had a standoff between Egypt and Palestine. Um, it was looking pretty bad for me at that point. But then I knew that since he brought the Americans into the war early with Germany, he had not attacked, he had aligned southern Mexico and Chile, which are pro-German, to create a distraction. I kind of figured when he did that, it would not be as much of a distraction as he thought it would be, and it ended up that was the case. So pretty much the Americans were able to take Brazil, Cuba, which are American aligned during this time period, and pick up all these extra IPCs, and it ended up backfiring. I think just a little bit, not too much. Um, but yeah, the Allies came swinging back, and here's the final score. Right here, as you can see, there's a lot of blue chips. I ran out of blue chips. I couldn't keep up with the minor cities part, but I did do a count, and they did end up by taking Hanover at the very end. They ended up with 7 minor cities as well. So 3, 5, and 7 minor cities. Got all 3 of the minor cities victory points. The final count is 15 victory points for the Allies and 4 for the Central Powers. Those victory points for the Central Powers are the Balkans, the victory city of Belgrade and Sofia, and 3 minor cities, which are Warsaw, Kiev, and Bucharest. The Allies secured the Western Front in favorable trade. What else did they do? They got the Suez Canal, Middle East oil, Africa, Pacific colonies, China, the Russian Revolution, the Empire Point, the victory city of Cologne, Constantinople, the capital of the Ottoman Empire, right at the very end with America, and Munich, as well as, like I mentioned before, the 3 minor city victory points. Those minor cities were Mecca, Jerusalem, Basra, Ankara, where else? Ypres in Belgium, Strasbourg, and Hamburg on the final turn, with a 1-2 punch between France and Britain. So yeah, they also secured Munich at the very end and took Constantinople. Tried to disrupt the Balkans points with 3 transports full of American units, and it just got bounced right back into the water. Did no damage because of that trench works. So yeah, wow, what a game. I did not think the Allies would come back so ferociously. I really thought it was just going to even out, and we would sort of stalemate and be fighting for points to the bitter end. But I think a couple of Moscow's decisions on the Western Front are what kind of cost him. I forget which round it was. It was either round 4 or 5 or maybe even 6. But there was a big battle over here in Belgium or Picardy. I had French units here. He had Germans here. I believe he was in Picardy and I attacked, or he was in Belgium and I attacked from Picardy. I'd have to go back and look. But I attacked him and I cut really deep into his units. About cut his army almost in half. I lost a lot of units too, but really what it did was he could not hold his position anymore in Belgium. He could not feed enough units there to hold his position, especially with the British having transports. I think it was 4 or 5 transports and units in London that could bridge across. So he had to start backing up. And once the backing up started, that's when it basically snowballed. The Allies got the space and the time they needed to mobilize, and Britain was sending 4 transports a turn worth of units, sometimes 5. The Americans were slowly building up after they dealt with the distraction over there in Mexico and Chile. They started sending units this way, so that's when things really started to go south for the Central Powers, and they were on the defensive, and they just kept backing up. At one point, Germany had Picardy, Burgundy, Provence, and Aquitaine. Had Paris surrounded, and all France had on Europe was Brittany and Ile-de-France. That's all they had. That was probably the high point. I think that was like turn 3, maybe something like that, or maybe even 4. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember. But yeah, most of the game, most of the early game, they held Verdun. Had air supremacy. I wasn't even trying to compete at a certain point. I was like, I just can't. I just need to survive. Just build infantry, until like the British could get their shit together and get some transports and units over there, because they were also dealing with the Middle East and Africa. So ultimately, I think he pushed too hard too quick. But it wasn't just that he pushed hard. It was also that I was watching what he was building. He was not building enough in Berlin, Cologne, and Munich to really reinforce it. Like if he built 100% of what he built out of those 3 cities was going to the Western Front, it still wasn't enough. That's how I looked at it. So I was like, okay, I feel pretty comfortable here at a certain point. So he was also trying to push east. He had the Austrians and the Germans pushing east. He was trying to do a split here, kind of like how I did last game. The Germans were sort of going north to threaten Petrograd, the capital, and the Austrians were going south. He also had the Ottomans come into the Caucasus. And this was earlier in the game where he had the Ottomans in the Caucasus. He had the Austrians, I believe they were either in Romania or Western Ukraine with a large force. And Russia was stuck right here in Crimea in the middle between 2 large armies. And most people would probably just back up out of there because there's 2 armies surrounding you, or they'd maybe try and feed it more and make it a little bit stronger. I decided to attack the Ottomans, and I got a lucky roll and wiped the whole army out. And that was another big moment in the game too, because it put the Ottomans in a defensive position early. They had to sort of, okay, now the British were building out of West India. I had a bunch of transports here. I was slowly taking over Africa. He had to really look at the board and say, okay, well, I need to make my push he's railing units into Palestine to make his push into Egypt, because that's a big NO for the Ottomans if they get control both sides of the Suez. But everything else here on this front, Mesopotamia, Persia, Armenia, Anatolia, Syrian desert, that was all in threat. So he had to start thinking defensively and going for the Suez as a last ditch. So I think his push over there in the Caucasus, I don't think he anticipated me attacking, and I did. That was a big moment. Sorry, I'm getting over this cold. Other remarkable things, Africa was pretty one note after about turn 2 or 3. On the very first turn, just like in the last game when I was playing Germany, he got a military base with his tech, and he put it right in German East Africa. I'm like, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, it's payback for last game. But you know what? I was like, I'm not going to let that fly, because I caused a lot of grief for him in Africa. I actually ended up with the Africa point with the Central Powers last game. I'm like, I am not putting up with that. So I built everything I could for kind of let Egypt off the hook a little bit. And I went straight at German East Africa. And I think it was turn 3 or 4 that I finally nabbed it, and I killed that military base. And from that point forward, all I had to do was hold Egypt, and basically the Central Powers could not take over Africa. So I think that was a big point too, because once Germany starts losing these IPCs that it starts with in Africa, that also cuts into their mobilization effort in Europe. And also too, I was convoying him over here. I was convoying Qingtao, his one of his colonies in the Pacific. So I was trying to do whatever I could to slow him down, because he was trying to create distractions for me, but I was trying to create distractions for him. And once that military base was out, Africa was no longer really a threat. The Ottomans were in defense, but they were also funneling units here, like I said, into Palestine. So really there was a standoff here for a while. And I think it was like till turn 7 or something like that. He attacked with his big force into Egypt. Cut my force in half, cut his in half, and then I just got it back. And I countered and took it all out. Got a good roll. So once that was done, the writing was on the wall for the Ottomans. With the Americans coming in, The British having all these transports left over, it was not looking good. He just had to hold on for dear life at that point. Um, the Austrians kind of, I don't want. I'm kind of jumping around here, but the Austrians, they didn't go and take the entirety of the Balkans till maybe mid to late game, which I thought was a little curious. I would think you'd want to take that earlier. I know there's a convoy here, and it's sort of hard to protect all these, when you're trying to help out on the Eastern Front and deal with Italy. But I thought he should have taken that out a little sooner, maybe grabbed the IPCs and the national objectives. But I think overall he had a pretty solid game with the Austrians. He held the line here. I made a big blunder by going in heavy with my whole Italian force basically into Tyrol, and I did not see he had a fighter there. And this was early mid game. I didn't see he had a fighter here, and he had all these artillery. I had no fighter to dogfight him. He had air supremacy, and he got a fantastic roll and cut my army by like 2/3. So that was bad. I had to start backing up with Italy, but. Yeah, not real remarkable other than that on that front. Just trading spots, maybe he leaves Tyrol open, I send one guy in, just trolling each other basically on that front. What else? Yeah, the Americans basically, once they got mobilized, were sending units into Belgium to help out with this push, and also sending units into the Med. Overall, they sent more into the Med. Made landings in Italy and then on to southern Anatolia to help out. And as you can see, the Americans finished the job. It was like a 1, 2, 3, 4 punch between, no, it was like a 1, 2, 3 punch actually, between the British, the Italians, and the Americans to finally put the Ottomans, the sick man of Europe, into their coffin. So rest in peace. At probably around round 3, I started building the Max, which is 4 units out of West India with the British. So that was helping the mobilization effort too. I was a little worried about him getting Crimea and then going to Caucasus and then maybe coming down here. So I was like, I just got to get prepared. More Eastern Front stuff. It just went back and forth. It was looking kind of dicey for me for a while. I had knocked out like the Ottomans, like I said, but then I think I recall knocking out a huge chunk of Austrians too at one point. I don't remember over here in the south, but there was a key point on the Eastern Front where the Germans were, I think, in Belarus or Lithuania. They had a huge force, and I had like 35 infantry, 15 artillery. It was something crazy. I had a mountain of units. He had a mountain of units, and he attacked. And yeah, he cut me down quite a bit, but it also cut him down quite a bit too. And I don't think he fully recovered from that because I had units here and here waiting. And it looked like he had backed up at that point the next turn, and he was consolidating again. And it just seemed like he was changing strategy on the Eastern Front a lot. Like it seemed like at first he wanted to do the 2-pronged attack where the Germans go north, Austrians south, maybe the Ottomans sneak in through the back door. And then once I stepped everything up in his face, it's like he kind of backed up and was reassessing. And he just gave me enough time to rebuild and keep coming back to fight some more. So he never got the Russian Revolution point. There's a few times it was pretty close, but I think he just gave me too much time. I think overall the German strategy was incredibly ambitious. It was trying to evenly split the ground forces both ways and keep both powers at bay and have air supremacy. He built a ton of fighters. And I don't think it was the right call because Germany can't do that much. Germany isn't that powerful. So it was a lot to deal with. Trying to do both of those, rather. And then his dreadnoughts got shot down. Or not dreadnoughts. His Zeppelins got shot down mid-game, and he rebuilt them. I probably wouldn't have rebuilt them just because of the cost. I probably would have built more ground units, but that's, everybody's got their own style. I mean, I thought he was doing really, really good in the beginning. And I think just a few decisions here and there are what kind of cost things for him. Just small things. I really don't think the distraction by aligning Mexico and Chile was a bad thing. I thought it was overall decent. Bringing America into the war early, prevents America from spending more on tech to share with the allies that are at war. That was a good call too. Early, oh, I totally overlooked, buried the lead here, but, early in the game, I think it was turn 2 with the Germans. They took their whole navy plus Zeppelins and tried to attack the British fleet in 20. And he got diced pretty bad and lost that battle handily. Only did 3 hits to me, and I put all 3 of them on my 3 dreadnoughts. So basically no damage. And that was a crucial opening too, because he was already massively on the back foot with the British there. So he had a lot of unlucky rolls in this game. He had a few lucky ones. I mean, especially with those improved naval mines over here. Oh my gosh. I mean, legendary rolling. Not good for me though. But yeah, I mean, the fun thing is you can try so many different strategies, and who cares? Nobody's really counting. So yeah, so this was a really fun game. China, let's cover China real quick. China was pretty much always in the Allied hands this game. There was maybe one turn where it looked like maybe the Central Power side was evening it out, but ultimately, Allied side pretty much got it handled. Japanese took the whole Pacific besides Qingdao, I think, by round... Yeah, it was round 5, because it was a turn right after Germany's turn where they got their NO for the Pacific. Yeah, so the Germans did get their Pacific NO for 1 round, but then it was quickly extinguished. And as you can see, the Japanese started moving units into Russia just in case the revolution happened, but it didn't, so there you have it. And just kind of kept units here in Qingdao just in case the worst happened, like the Central Power side was winning in China. I may have to come in and try and enforce Allied rule of law or something. I don't know. So there you have it. That was the second game. It was a lot of fun. I think this second game was more fun than the last game just because there was just so much wild stuff happening. But yeah, a lot of fun. Just looking over the board again. Final score. Let me double count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, yeah, 15. Final score 15-4, Allies. So, all right. I hope the next game is either in person with more people or YouTube with more people. A lot of people have been expressing interest in being a part of the next YouTube game of Kings and Kaisers, and that's exciting because I can't wait to see some of the other strategies out there. So message me or Moose Cow if you're interested. If you'd like a map or perhaps the tracker and battle board, let me know. I also have pieces as well. Every piece you see on the board here, I've 3D printed. This is colored resin, so it's not painted, and this is a tougher resin. So it's like you can actually drop these pieces. I could throw this piece on the floor and it probably wouldn't break. So well, it went missing, but I don't know where it went, but it didn't break. That's the point. So really, really great pieces too. Yeah, let me know. Peace out.